Hey, before I kick off the podcast, I just want to shout out Next Door Clothing. Next Door, a clothing brand based out of Bondi in Sydney. They're making really nice jeans and shirts and hats. So go and check out their full range at nextdoorsydney.com. They're also artists, so you can go and check out a range of art. They put on rad parties, and I love what they're doing. So nextdoorsydney.com for the full range. Hey, it's Shan here. This week I speak with skateboarder, creative and former controversial reality TV star, Mr. Dean Wells. We're joined by mutual friend, skateboarder and past guest, Mr. Darren Kaehne, who sits in as co-host this week. And the three of us hang out in Dean's studio in Manly for a long conversation about his life. Dean shares about his family's origins, their move and migration from England, landing in the western suburbs of Sydney of Auburn, their transition to the city of Newcastle, in which he discovers his love for things like skateboarding and surfing. And from there, Dean shares about everything in between and where he is up to now in life. You know, Darren and I just couldn't help ourselves. We really needed to hear about his experience with being thrust into literally overnight fame as a participant on a mainstream national reality TV show. And Dean's really open about it. He talks a lot about the behind the scenes stuff and how the producers orchestrate a show like that and create storylines and narratives. And listening to those stories, I just couldn't help to think, wow, it would have been so hard on your mental health. And I think with Dean, the feeling I got was he was quite self-assured, self-confident, and I believe that probably those characteristics have probably given him the resilience that would be required to deal with an experience like that and probably continue to deal with. Dean mentioned that, you know, his life was never the same after being on that show. So I guess it's something most of us will never experience. Having Dean on the show was fun because he's well-spoken, fiercely intelligent and opinionated. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Listen with an open heart and an open mind and enjoy. Terrible Happy Talks. Terrible Happy Talks.
Yeah, good to be here, man. Whoa. Dude, I'm pumped.
Submissive dominant lifestyle.
3, 2, 1. Alright, do this. Like Darren was saying, like, you know, you've been skating your whole life.
Yeah, man.
But I'm like, I don't want to stereotype. You don't come across as like
a skater?
the build of a skater.
I think I got the build of a footy player, man.
I know. Have you ever played footy?
I love footy. Yeah, I used to play footy when I was a kid. That's what I was right into, like just playing rugby league. My oldies got me right into it. I was pretty good at it and loved it. And then I just started getting into skating and like the culture and being like, just being creative, man. And like skating for me was an outlet to be creative and get more into what I was really into. And so I ended up just ditching footy, which I probably should have just stayed playing footy, to be honest. Much better money in it.
Got the build.
Probably a much better lifestyle. I didn't really have the build for skating, but I just love skating, man. And so just pretty much dedicated my life to skating.
What did you like about it, though, compared to footy? What was it doing for you personally?
Man, it's a good question. To be honest, like, I hate this word toxic masculinity, and it's become a buzzword in this day and age. But I tell you what, there was this toxic masculinity in the footy culture, and there was like just that jock mentality and that like kind of egging each other on to do dumb shit mentality, and I just wasn't into it. I just wanted to be, I don't know, I knew I was something different to that. And like nothing against any footy players. I think there's heaps of really good blokes that are footy players, but back then especially there was a bit of this like mentality of like just do dumb shit, disrespecting women, disrespecting each other, disrespecting this and that, and it just wasn't for me. And I wanted to, I don't know, I just identified more with skating culture.
Yeah. Was it also because it was a team sport and you didn't feel like a team player?
No, not really, man. I made really good friends in footy, and like if anything, I like the team sport thing, and I like being part of a team. I like being the leader of a team. I was always a good footy player, and like it just came natural to me. and everyone around me at my school and stuff looked to me to be like the leader of the school football team, the leader of rep teams and stuff like that. Like I was right into the rugby league, and then I don't know, man. Yeah, the team sport thing wasn't a negative for me. It was just, I don't know. There's just no like creative thinking and artistic thinking was just really frowned upon in that world, and then that was what I was getting more into, and yeah, I don't know. I just fell in love with skating.
Yeah. Do you feel like that term toxic masculinity does get thrown around a lot, but do you feel since then, compared to now, there has been a significant cultural shift?
Yeah, man. I think there has definitely been a cultural shift for the positive in general. And it's like, look, man, anyone that knows me knows I'm kind of anti-woke, and I think a lot of this woke language and whatnot goes too far, and I think sometimes, it all gets a bit ridiculous. But when you look at the bigger picture, over the last 20, 30 years, things have gotten better. Like my grandparents used to say some kind of like racist stuff, and that was kind of just standard, and it was like, I was never going to judge my grandma for saying, like stuff about Aboriginal people and whatnot that I won't even repeat. And she wasn't like a real hardcore racist. It was just that casual using, racist language here and there that was just standard for that. Like those people, like people from that generation just use that kind of language. And like, I never agreed with it, but I also wasn't going to call out my 80-year-old grandma for using, racist language. And I think now there's way less of that in general. There's way less racist language. There's way less disrespect for people and women and, LGBTQ community, all that stuff. I think it's way less. And I think it's a big positive in general. It's a net positive, but I do think it goes too far sometimes.
Yeah. Do you think it needs to go too far? So then we can find our balance. Like, are we going through a real, I guess, developmental period as a society in our country or in the world for that matter?
Mate, it's a very good question. And like, does the pendulum need to swing past the point of, normality? Maybe it does. Maybe that's a good thing. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it's going to land somewhere back in the middle though, because yeah, I think it definitely has gotten a bit out of control, some of this woke language and whatnot.
Yeah. You mentioned like, you're not anti-woke.
Look, I'm not anti being respectful to each other. I'm definitely not anti LGBTQ or anything like that, or anti, just being respectful to anyone in their choices in life. I'm 110% all for that. And I've grown up being someone, and as skaters, we're pretty open-minded. Like in general, especially when I was growing up, most skaters were like not, they were the opposite of like the footy crowd. They were like, no, if you're like black or female or gay or trans or whatever, a punk, or you've got blue hair, come with us. Like, you're part of the skate crew. Like, all the misfits were part of the skate crew. And I love that about skateboarding, man. And I've been like that. I've been part of that, and I've been very welcoming to anyone and everyone that wants to join that culture, and I think that's a great thing about skateboarding. So I don't know. I think in general, we're at a net positive place. Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
See, I think you're an interesting paradox to me, because I feel like you could have easily thrived in that football culture for most of your life, just given the physical stature that you were blessed with. But then the fact that you were kind of like anti that and were sort of more listening to that misfit in you. Do you still feel like a misfit?
Yeah, probably, man. Yeah, I do. It's probably gone full circle now. I'm like,
what do you mean?
Like now, I'm like, I look at footy players and I'm like, these guys are disciplined. They work their asses off. They make good money. A lot of them are very good, respectful family people. A lot of that toxic masculinity has gone from rugby league culture. I'm not saying it doesn't exist at all, but I think a lot of it is gone. It's become a much more open-minded sport and a much more respected athletic pursuit, And I'm like, shit, like there's some really interesting, like I'm friends with a few of the NRL players, and a few of the NRL players really support everything I do on Instagram. They won't ever say it publicly, but I've stood up for some of the NRL players in some certain situations and whatnot. And I think a lot of the toxic masculinity has gone. But, yeah, you're right. In a way, I'm a paradox in that respect, in that I was such a big kind of hippie and leftist and skater punk when I was younger. And I've kind of came full circle, but not that I've gone back one way or the other. I think I've just landed in the middle where I know myself. I'm very happy with myself. I'm very happy with all my decisions in life. Becoming a skater, becoming a creative, that was the right thing for me to do. And, yeah, but now I just can see the value in team sport, in working your ass off, in being disciplined, in exercise, diet, all those things that skaters we didn't care about diet when I was a skater. Like, you'd smoke 100 bongs a day and go skating and, like, eat the shittest food, It was fun, but, like...
now, though. It's changed.
Hey?
It's changed.
Yeah.
Skaters are getting all about that.
Really?
Yeah. You haven't noticed?
Look, I don't follow skating that much anymore, but you can sort of, you can kind of tell that that's what's happening. There's a lot more people that are just like
clean living,
a lot more serious about it and taking it as a sport, and like an Olympic sport, I guess, and like nutrition and health and all that stuff. But
yeah. Hey, on a side note, how do you feel when the NRL advocates for social causes?
Mate, this is a good question. Like, look, I think. I love the Indigenous round, and I think we should be sticking up for Indigenous people more and more.
Minority group.
Yeah, and I think they're an international anomaly. That's like the oldest living group of people on this planet, and I think we should definitely be, trying to celebrate them as much as we can, trying to help that culture as much as we can. I'm 100% all for that. Then last season they had what was it called? I think it was called Pride Round. And this is what happened when they tried to get all the Manly players to wear the Pride jersey.
That lost us this whole season.
Well, yeah, it was a very big game. And then you had, I think it was called the Manly 6 or the Manly 7, who were 7 players. I think it was 7. Was it 7?
That was at least 7, yeah.
I think it was 7 players who said, no, I don't want to wear this Pride jersey. And that was such a big controversy, right?
They're all Polynesian, right?
They're all Polynesian, and I think
Christian.
One of them is Aboriginal background as well, but mainly Christian. And look, my point in that is, like, why should they be forced to wear that jumper? I don't agree with the fact that they were being forced to wear that jumper against their will. I think the correct procedure there would have been to say, okay, if you don't want to wear it, that's fine. Don't wear it. You can still play. You just don't have to wear it. None of them were coming out and saying anything specifically homophobic. None of them said anything nasty. They kept quiet. They kept their dignity about themselves. And, I have been in contact with a few of these lads, and trust me, they wanted to speak out about what was going on. They're not bad people. They're not hateful people. They just don't want to carry weight for this movement that in some ways goes against their religion.
And their values.
And I think that should be respected. I think they should have been allowed to, they got kicked out of that round. They weren't allowed to play that round because they didn't want to wear that jersey.
Yeah, I mean, comparatively to raising awareness about the plight of our Indigenous people, why do you think it is more controversial? Is it because the underlying theme of Pride is sexuality identification, and that's where it gets, I guess, a bit more of a grey space?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Man, it's a good question. Look, I did a little bit of a video about this on my Instagram, and I thought about it, and it's like, this is how I broke it down. Okay, there are some pretty wild things coming out of the LGBTQIA2S plus community. That is the acronym, right?
What does that mean?
I feel ignorant. I've never heard that. I'm sorry, I feel ignorant.
That's where that acronym is at the moment, and it stands, the 2S stands for Two Spirit, right? Which, again, fine, if that's what you want to identify as. I've got no problem with that. But I do think there are some pretty wild things. Like, now the list of genders it's sitting around like 127. And I saw
it is.
There's a new gender called gender fuck. There's all these bizarre genders
no
that
idea.
I've never heard of, right? Not only that, we're being told that, biological men can just be women just by saying that I'm a woman. And then when that happens, we have to respect that that person is a woman. And if they want to go to a doctor and have their cervix looked at, even though they don't have one of those, then we have to respect that. And things like that, men having babies. To me, I don't buy into that. That's not a true thing. And so when you're this religious rugby league player who's probably, let's be honest, a lot of these guys pull themselves up from their bootstraps, and religion and discipline is a big part of that. Whether you believe in that or not in Australia, in certain, especially Indigenous communities and Polynesian communities, their society in a lot of ways is broken, right? Whether you like religion or Christianity or not, Christianity often can come in, give people a sense of purpose, give them direction, give them help, give them discipline. And a lot of these guys build themselves up to a point where they're playing rugby league, making good money, providing for their families, providing for a whole village of people back in wherever they're from, oftentimes.
And they've come from nothing.
They've come from nothing. And then now they're being told that they have to wear this pride jersey and support the idea that men can have babies and this and that and all these other wild things that are coming out of that world. And it's just like, no, why should they have to wear that jersey?
Yeah.
I think it's completely inappropriate that those guys got... And look, I support I have many gay family members, right? I have 5 or 6 lesbian family members, depending on who you ask. I'm nothing but supportive of that group. But there are certain things coming out of that world that I think are a bit outrageous. And there's plenty of gay people that would agree with me on that. And for that reason, I think it was inappropriate for the NRL to stop those guys from playing that round. And I think they should just stay out of rugby league. Okay. I don't know why. That's the best explanation I can give. It's not better or worse than the cause of Indigenous people, but it just is not a good fit for rugby league, the whole pride thing, in my opinion.
So to be clear, you're okay with people identifying however they'd like. So you're finding issue with the predominance of the conversation?
I wouldn't say the predominance of the conversation. It's just certain aspects of the conversation are not logical to me. And it's fine that it's prominent. I guess, there's just certain aspects that are just not logical. I don't think men can have babies. And I don't think... The one thing that really bugs me at the moment is everyone is being encouraged, sometimes some would say forced, to put pronouns in their bio on their email. And in the corporate world, a lot of people feel pressure that they have to put he, him, or she, her, or whatever it might be in their email signature for all their work emails. And all the work emails I get now, I would say 90% of them have pronouns in their bio. And I don't agree with that. I'm like, why? I know this is a man. I know this is a woman. Why do I need pronouns in their email? Like, fair enough. Look, if you're a transgender person and you want to put pronouns in there because there might be some confusion about what gender you are, because unfortunately, maybe you are a woman and you want to be a man and you want people to call you he, him. I totally get that. I actually get that, and I will respect someone's pronouns. If someone wants me to call them a male or a female, whatever they are, if they want that, I will give them that, and I'll be respectful towards that. But I don't think the rest of us should be sort of forced to put pronouns in our bio. I think that's a bit of a fantasy. I think that's a bit of I find it disingenuous, and I find it like pandering. I think it's like pandering to that world and that movement because we don't really need it. I don't need Daz to put he, him in his bio.
You're obviously
he's a man.
a bloke.
Yeah, exactly.
It's clear.
Yeah, like I just don't agree with that. And what's more annoying is that, like, if you talk about that stuff or you say anything against that, you get labelled as homophobic or bigoted or this or that. And it's like, what? No, I just don't really believe in pronouns.
Well, see, that's where I find the irony. With everyone having to announce their pronouns, I think that in itself leads to discrimination. It sort of, in a way, goes against the feminist movement.
Yeah, man.
That's just my analysis on it, because they've been fighting for, equity and equality for so long. but because of their gender. And then now it's like, well, now we want everyone to announce their gender. I don't know. Just an observation.
Well, I think that happens across the spectrum of, oppression. Like now there's this movement called intersectionalism. I don't know if you've ever heard of this.
Yeah, I have vaguely, but maybe you could elaborate on it. I don't know.
Like intersectionalism means, look, my interpretation of it is, okay, if you're a lesbian, you're probably a bit oppressed, right? And that's probably true. Like coming from a family where my sister was a lesbian, I've seen her cop shit, over the years, and I will stick up for her. I've seen my sister be misgendered, right? She looks a bit masculine. She basically wears men's clothes. And I've been out with my sister and traveled around the world with her, and sometimes someone will call her dude or mate or hey bro. Accidentally, like it's not on purpose. They're not doing it on purpose. They, she does look like a man sometimes, and she gets upset at that. And I'm just like, that's really sad. And like, I will support her all the way, And like, I get that, and I've seen that happen, and I've seen, how hurtful that can be. So it's like, it's a complex one. I totally agree with, trying to be respectful and helpful and respect everyone's wishes. But at the same time, I don't think we should have to change our entire language. I don't think we should have to change the rules of how we communicate and how we address people. I think we all should be a bit more understanding and try and be a bit aware of other people's situations. But I don't believe we should get rid of the idea of male and female or the gender binary or anything like that. Anyway, I was talking about intersectionalism. I went off on a tangent there, but basically intersectionalism means, okay, if you're a lesbian, you're a bit oppressed. If you're a black lesbian, you're even more oppressed. If you're a black lesbian, that has some kind of mental issue, then you're even more oppressed. Basically, it all adds up to, unless you're a straight white male, you've been oppressed and you deserve reparations of some kind. And to me, that is sexist, racist, and heterophobic. So you've spent all this time trying to get to a point of equality. And yeah, I understand positive discrimination or affirmative action, and I think that is a good thing in some cases. But I think this idea now of intersectionalism and then everyone that's not a straight white male is somehow oppressed, I think that's totally wrong. I'm a straight white male, and I come from literally the poorest suburb in Australia at the time, Auburn. Come from a very poor family. My family came over from England and, had a very tough time growing up. We pulled ourselves up from nothing, and no one ever gave me a thing. And so many people who might happen to be black or lesbian or this or that had a lot more privilege than me growing up. So why should I now take this position of, oh, well, I'm somehow, this privileged straight white male when I've never had any kind of privilege in my life? So that, I guess, has taken it to a whole nother level. This idea of intersectionalism, i.e. everyone else is oppressed other than straight white males, I just think is ridiculous, and I just don't agree with it. And I think, like you were saying, that is actually leading to more segregation.
Good point. Hey, thanks for the education, bro. I think you articulated that really well.
Thank you.
But I want to ask you on a personal level, how do you deal with hate? Because I'm assuming you've dealt with some hate.
As in people like attacking me? Yeah, man. I have so much hate come my way, especially since I was on TV a few years ago. I got, a lot of hate coming my way. Like people literally saying, I'm going to come to Manly and stab you in the throat. I'm going to come to your house. I'm going to find out where you live. You're this, you're that. Every single name you can think of under the sun. And look, part of it, you just go, look, I went on TV and I have to take that. It's just sort of part of the process. Then, sometimes it does get you down a little bit and you sort of you buy into it. But then you realize these people are bored, like lonely, sad people who are getting on the internet to talk shit about someone they've never met before in real life. They know you from some kind of public profile.
They wouldn't say it to your face.
No, I hope not.
Hell no.
A couple of people say it to my face as well.
Yeah, right. But you're heavily misconceived on TV as well, right?
I mean, yeah, yes and no. Like, yeah, there was definitely a huge portion of what was portrayed of me was bullshit. I was definitely no angel on that show either. I did a lot of fucked up shit as well. But, yeah.
For those that are unaware, because I know like it was quite a predominant show in Australia, but I think there are a lot of people out there, maybe my listeners, because I have a global audience, who aren't aware of what you actually were doing on TV. Do you mind sharing it again? Just briefly?
Nice.
Like what was, you said I did some fucked up shit.
Yeah.
Well, what was it exactly that caused the problem?
Well, all right, yeah. I was on a TV show called Married at First Sight here in Australia, which wasn't a very big show. I'd never really heard of it, and I got recruited at my local bar. I was sitting at the Manly Wharf bar one day. I was single, and, yeah, these TV casting people came up to me and said, would you want to go on this show?
So you didn't apply?
No, I didn't apply.
Oh, see, I was going to ask, well, that's one of my questions, like, why would you apply to that?
Yeah, I didn't apply. I was just literally minding my own business. These casting people came. What's that, Daz?
How long did it take to realise this is a good idea?
I'm waiting for Darren to say.
Mate, I went back and forth a few times and between should I do it, should I not? And then they convinced me that this is going to be the best thing in the world for you. We're going to use all this scientific knowledge and scientific techniques to find you exactly the right partner, and it's going to be amazing for you.
Were you legit lonely?
Yeah, I was definitely looking for a partner.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. I'd been single for about 4 years, and I was, ready to find a partner. And anyway, you do this thing called a master interview, where they interview you for about an hour and ask you like every single question under the sun. And during that interview, I said a few things like, I prefer traditional roles of male and female. I said, I think men should be leaders. I said, I'm an alpha male and I like to be a leader in a relationship. And I said, I want a woman that listens to me. Now that line right there, I think got taken so out of context.
We can make a chauvinist out of this, man.
Exactly. The producers were like, so I did say the words, I want a woman that listens to me. In the context of, I used to be a musician. Like I used to do rapping. I was in a punk band. I used to love music. That was a big thing for me. And my ex-partner just before that, we were together for about 4 years and we'd broken up. And part of it was she never asked me about my interests. She never asked me anything about any of the bands I was in. She knew music was like the biggest thing in my life. And she never asked me about it ever. And like it became a bit of a sticking point in our relationship to where like you're not interested in me as a person. And so in that interview, I was talking about my music, I was talking about my interests, and I was talking about how my previous partner showed no interest in me as a person. And I said, so for my new partner, I want someone that listens to me. I said, I want a woman that listens to me. Anyway, that's the story that I told. They cut out the entire preamble about music and the relationship, all that, put in that one little line that said, I want a woman that listens to me. Then they put the words obey in big red letters behind my head in a graphic. Then they pumped out this promo saying that there's this guy called Dean and he wants a woman to obey him.
Didn't they have those little horns on your head?
Mate, not quite the horns, but yeah, probably it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But, they pumped this promo during the cricket for like a month before the show was even on air. They pumped this promo of this Dean guy who wants a woman to listen to him and obey him. And so before the show even started, there was this giant media shitstorm. Went all around the world. There was like, oh, this misogynist is being let on. They shouldn't even let this guy on TV. This is dangerous. This is the most, hectic thing. Why is Channel 9 doing this? But Channel 9 knew exactly what they were doing. They were creating a media storm in order to get people to watch the show, and it worked. All of a sudden, on my season, it was the biggest rating show in Australia by far. And then on the show, the woman that they matched me with, she was looking for an alpha male type guy. She wanted traditional roles, all that kind of stuff. But in every other way, we were wrong for each other. But the producers put us together because it was like, this guy said that stuff. She said that stuff. We can build this storyline around them. But as far as a match, we were completely wrong for each other.
What was the narrative from the producers behind the scenes to you when all that stuff was being publicised? What were they saying to you? Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, man.
This is all part of the story.
Yeah.
Any publicity is good publicity? Were they saying shit like that?
Pretty much, man. Pretty much. They gaslight you into.
They gaslight you.
They go, "This is going to be good, Dean. Don't worry. Your story arc is this, and this is great, and just it's all part of the process. And don't fight back. Don't talk back. Don't try and answer any of these allegations." I was being called a domestic violence abuser. I was being called a rapist. I was being called every name under the sun that's you can imagine, especially from the hardcore feminist media. And this is, none of them have ever met me. None of them have ever reached out to me for comment. Yet you're getting accused of the most heinous shit you can think of. And this is before the show even started.
Holy
and
shit.
I wanted to come out and tell my story. I was like, fuck this. Like, this is ridiculous. I need to tell the truth here. This is all bullshit. None of this is true. This is not what I said. This is not the context. But they convinced me not to.
Did you have an NDA?
Oh, 100%. You got a contract bloody 10 inches thick.
Yeah. So you couldn't speak out even if you wanted to?
Looking back, I reckon I could have and got away with it, and I wish I did. But at the time, you're like, I didn't know. I'd never been on TV. I'd never been in the public spotlight. I've had no media training. These producers...
We were saying that.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. Like, we want to know what it's like to go from being like a skater dude from Newcastle to then overnight that mental battle that you would have had to just to all of a sudden deal with.
Was it overnight? Did it feel like...
It was. Well, it was because no one had ever heard of me at all. And then I was in Newcastle and I got a call on a Sunday night from one of the producers, and they say, "Hey, Dean, we're releasing the first promo for the show tomorrow, and guess what? You're the star of the show." And I was like, "Oh, wow, this is cool. Like, yeah, I'm going to be like famous. I'm the star of the show. That's excellent." And she goes, "But guess what? Sorry, you're not going to like it. And get ready, because tomorrow everything's going to change for you." And I was just like, "What are you talking about?" Like, what? Because I'd forgotten. Like, that interview that I did was like 4 or 5 months before. Plus, we talked about 100 different things. I didn't remember one little line or one little thing that I said here and there. So I had no idea what was coming.
Which was like a semi-audition. So you were on the show, but they were trying to place you in the show. Is that right?
Yeah,
they were using that to work out how they were going to place you.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, it's not an audition. It's by that time that I'd already been selected for the show. They call it the master interview or the backstory interview, but really what it is them getting an hour or two worth of material out of you that they can use against you or use however they see fit to craft a story, So I'd forgotten all the shit that I'd said in that interview. I don't know, like whatever. But then sure enough, the next day on the Monday, that promo dropped. And in one day, in 24 hours, just all hell broke loose. And like nothing's been the same for me ever since that day.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you miss the before days? Like, do you miss being a nobody?
Sometimes, man. But no, in general, look, I think it's great, and I don't regret any of it. Like, I don't regret anything that I said. I stand by everything that I said. Some of it was taken out of context, yes, but I still believe in all those things. I still believe, for the most part, men should take a leading role. Men should be masculine. Women are feminine. Every woman I know loves being a feminine person, loves a man who is a leader. Like, to this day, that completely rings true. So I got no regrets in that respect.
But I mean, you probably hear it constantly from women that, I just want a man. Like, why can't I find any good men?
Yep.
But then I think maybe they don't actually know what that looks like. And I think a lot of men don't know what it looks like. I think in my opinion, I think there's a lot of confusion about men have a lot of confusion about what their role is now in relationships. They don't, because it's like this combination of like, I want to be supportive of my woman, but I don't want to be then accused of being like controlling or manipulative these are terms that are getting thrown around. And like you said, or toxic masculine, which I think a lot of men don't even understand what that means. And maybe they're doing those things without realising. I don't know.
So you're still married to this lady or not?
Definitely not, mate. I was over that relationship like first day.
Yeah, right.
Like, she was lovely. She's a nice person in so many ways, but as far as being a good partner for me, completely wrong.
Interesting. So tell us where you grew up. Tell us about your childhood. You said you were born in Auburn.
Yeah, man.
And then where?
Yeah, I was born in Auburn, out in Western Sydney, which is like very poor area. All my brothers and my dad and my uncles were all big footy players. But, man, my dad told me this story one day. It was kind of crazy. He was putting us in school, and my brother, who was 4 years older than me, Danny, was, in school, and it was a very multicultural area. Like, still is. Like, if you go to Auburn now, it's like, mainly Muslim, and then there's like 50,000 other different sort of nationalities and whatnot there. It's a very multicultural place, and it was even back then. And our teacher said to my dad, hey, you're not going to be able to get a good education in this school. I have at least 10 different nationalities and 10 different languages being spoken. I have to stop every 5 minutes and explain it to every kid from every nationality. I'm really sorry. I'm telling you right now, your kids are not going to get a good education. So my dad picked us up, took us out of there, and moved to Newcastle. That was when I was 2 years old. Right. And that completely changed my life. So I've got cousins and whatnot that stayed in the western suburbs of Sydney. Their life, their trajectory in life was completely different to mine. And not necessarily good or bad, but I became a skater, I became a surfer, I became, your typical blonde-haired Aussie kid just floating around Newcastle. And, I think it was amazing. I had the best childhood ever, man. Growing up in Newcastle was just such a good vibe.
Good town.
Yeah, man.
Really good town. Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about the maths stuff. I'm sure you probably spoke about it so much and probably over it. But
that's all right.
When you were accepted on the show, how were you feeling about what your mates might think? Like, how were you feeling about, for example, the Newcastle skate crew that you grew up with, like those guys that you grew up with, skating with and surfing with? Like, was it ever in the back of your mind, like, oh, I wonder what they're thinking?
Yeah, a little bit.
Is that a bad question?
No, it's a good question. No, for sure, man. You think about those things for sure.
Do you?
And look, I've always been. I've never really cared about what people think about me, so it was definitely an afterthought. But you definitely consider those things. You're like, oh shit, I wonder what this guy that I went to school with, what's he going to think? And 'cause everyone was watching the show. Like, everyone in Australia was watching it. Everyone knew about me. Even if you didn't watch the show, you knew about this asshole guy who's cheated on his. Because I did cheat on the show as well. I hooked up with another chick on the show, another one of the brides, which was the first time that was ever done. And that was a huge, another big controversy on top of the controversy that they'd already started. So it was just a shit show.
It was a legit hookup.
Yeah, pretty much, man. Yeah, I was
you're
just
an adulterer.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
That's such a harsh word, dude.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't technically married, and I just wasn't into Tracy, the girl that they matched me with. I just wasn't into her, and I told her that to her face. I said it on camera a bunch of times. They edited all of that out, made it look like I was leading her on, which I totally wasn't. And then, I took an interest in another one of the brides, Davina, and her and I kind of hooked up. And we didn't even kiss. We had one date, but we were into each other. There was an emotional, cheating in that respect. And
how did her husband take that?
He's the one that told me to do it.
Yeah, there you go.
But he didn't do that on camera.
Right.
So off camera, he pretended, or he told me that he wasn't into her. They'd basically broken up. He told me that that his wife was into me, and that I should go for it because he was going to go for one of the other wives. And then on camera, when I was a dumbass that came out and admitted to doing all this, he pretended like he didn't know anything about it.
He was all hurt by it.
Yeah.
Was this Ryan?
Ryan Gallagher, yeah.
I remember. I watched the show.
Oh,
reality TV, hey?
Yeah, mate.
When you watch reality TV, when you watch reality TV shows now, you must be looking at through such a different lens. You're just like, that's bullshit, or I don't know.
Yeah, man. Again, it's like I always say, it's about 70% real.
Okay,
on my experience, it's pretty real. Like, you're getting the general gist of what went on. I did have an affair, and a lot of this stuff. But then there's scenes that are total bullshit, and it's not that anything on there is totally faked. It's just that 1,000 other things happened, and that doesn't make the show. All these conversations happen. Other people hook up with other people on the show, and that doesn't make the show. So much, only this tiny slither of what happened in this big group of 20 people really makes the show, and they just ram home these 3 or 4 main kind of storylines. when there's like probably 5 other storylines that they could have gone with that totally changed the context of what you do see on the show. And so I don't know, man. It's an interesting thing to look at from inside and out.
But you're an editor. You know,
I'm an editor. See, I've edited reality shows
Yeah.
before. I know how that goes. Like, but I've never seen it done as badly to some of the people on that show. Maths, not just me. Heaps of other people have complained about this. They definitely do a thing called Like I do these things. It's called a Frankenstein edit. So, like a Frankenstein edit is where you take one little word from one sentence and another couple of words from another sentence, and you form a whole new sentence that the person never said. You know, Frankenbites or Franken edits. Like, it's a standard thing in the industry. But it does happen, and they do misrepresent people and put forward sentences and words that never happen. And that's kind of fucked. That is kind of fucked. But, at the same time,
That's TV.
that's TV. They're doing their job. The producers have got a job to do. They're making a good TV show. Like, everyone watches it.
Was there a writer on the show? I mean, I know it's real.
A writer?
Yeah, but like that someone's got to not decide like who gets portrayed as what and what gets edited where. Like,
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a writer. There's definitely the producers are crafting a story,
yeah, the producer.
and I think it's more about psychologically manipulating people into doing and saying certain things and putting them in certain situations where they know something's going to happen.
Yeah.
They don't know exactly what's going to happen. Like, for example, with me, when I revealed to my producer that I wanted to have an affair with Davina, because you have to tell them everything. That's the thing. Like, you kind of get this drilled into you from the start. That
Contractually.
Well, contractually, but also, you give yourself over to the process and you trust these people, and you trust that this is a real, like, social experiment, which it's not. But you do think that at the time. And one of the rules is you have to tell the producers if anything is going to happen in your relationship. You're not allowed to kiss or further your relationship if it's going to happen off camera. So if you have a thought about, I think I'm falling in love with her, I want to tell her that, you have to hold that thought in, wait till the next day where the cameras show up, tell your producer separately, because you have a meeting at the start of the day, hey, what's going on with you guys, what happened last night? And you'll tell them what you're thinking, or are you progressing the relationship? Then they'll go, okay, well, cool, we want to capture that. So we're going to start the cameras rolling in 3 minutes. Please tell us that story that you just told us, but say it again in your own words. And so part of that for me was telling them that I had an interest in Davina and that I wanted to have an affair. So
that's good ratings.
God, they would.
Once I told them that, they said, okay, we're going to facilitate this somehow. We're going to, we have a crazy shooting schedule, but we're going to move things around so that you can go on a date with Davina, right? But the only way we're going to allow that to happen is if you reveal this while sitting on the couch at the commitment ceremony. So I was just like, I want to be with this chick. Okay, I'll do whatever you guys tell me to do in order to facilitate me actually going on a date with her. And I didn't realize, they just wanted the drama.
Of course.
And they wanted me to reveal it in front of all the other people so they could film it.
Yeah.
And fucking everyone just went off their nut. And I'm just sitting there going, oh, shit, what was I thinking? Like, why did I listen to these people? I've just revealed this giant secret on national TV in front of all these people, and they're all attacking the shit out of me. And now I've got to deal with the consequences. So in that respect, it's not written. There's no writers, but they're manipulating us, man. And they're very good at it.
Heavy.
They
But
know what they're
didn't
doing.
Ryan make it seem like it was a surprise to him as well at the time?
Yeah, Ryan just pretended like he didn't know that I was going to have the affair.
Who's Ryan? The
He's-
boyfriend or the husband of the...
He was the husband of the chick
okay.
that I had the affair with, yeah.
Do you still catch up with any of these people? Or?
Yeah, a few of them.
Yeah.
A few of them. I was friends with Ryan for a while, but we're not friends anymore. I don't know. And you end up meeting a lot of other people from other reality shows, and especially people from maths, because you end up at the same events, and you all just kind of want to share your experience and that. So I know a lot of people from reality TV. They're all legends.
There'd be very few people that could relate to the experience as well.
Yeah, exactly.
On a positive note, you strike me as someone who has quite staunch opinions, which I really respect, to be honest, because I'm really all about, you stand for something or you fall for everything, and, don't be a fence sitter. But to look at it in a positive light, it has given you a platform. Do you now feel a sense of purpose to utilize that platform to share your opinions on some staunch topics?
Yeah, definitely, man. And like you said, like it was an overnight thing where I went from being just this absolute nobody to this most hated man in the country, like literally overnight, like, you know. And during that process, I got to see how the media portrays and twists things, right? And especially that hardcore leftist media, which I would say I was pretty hardcore left, like before that experience. But then that side of the media just lied and lied and lied and manipulated and twisted my words and twisted me into this whole person that I was not. So I'm just like, wow, that's what they do. That's fucked.
Do you think we're too complacent as a society?
How do you mean? Like,
well, we're not questioning enough. Do you think we're too obedient?
Look, there's always going to be a small group of people who question everything. I guess there'd be chaos if everyone just questioned everything all the time. I think there's a role for people who are disruptors, for people who do question everything. I do think there's a lot of people that are a bit naive, for sure. And but then again, you don't know what any one individual person's been through. Like, some people just want to stay out of political shit, and I don't blame them. They don't want to get involved in, you can get fired from your job if you say the wrong thing now. And I don't think that it's necessarily always people are sheep or don't want to be involved in it. It's just like, I'm struggling. I came from this background, and now I'm just trying to provide for my family. I want to keep my head down, shut the fuck up, get the job done, and put food on the table, And I respect that about a lot of people, but I am lucky. Being on Maths did give me a bit of a platform. Plus, I've always just been outspoken. I've always just been someone that likes to share my mind. And yeah, in that respect, I'm very glad and lucky that I get to question things. I think it's a luxury.
I think it is. It's a privilege in a democracy, but I feel like that is being eroded in our country and a lot of the world, especially the Western world, which is concerning. And that's why I think it does take people to have courage to speak out, especially if they have a platform, to use it for the right way. It's really I'm really curious by it. I think for me personally, I feel like sometimes we can be complicit where we should be speaking up and not letting us being led by the mainstream media. Yep. So I guess my next question for you is where do you consume your media now? Do you have any faith in mainstream media?
Man, that's a real good question. And being in the media my whole life, you slowly start to realize how full of shit the mainstream media is, and then their agenda. They've just got to sell ads. It's all it comes down to. They've got to sell ads, whether it's for cars or pharmaceuticals, whatever it is. They've got to sell ads, but they've also got to be G-rated. They can't talk about anything too somewhat controversial. And I think, the internet, and especially in the last 5 to 7 years, this whole democratization of media, there's so many more voices out there now. You get to do this podcast. That wasn't possible 20 years ago, man. And all these alternative media sources are, I think, amazing. And some of them are fucking loony. And I think everyone should have total free speech. I think you should be allowed to say, obviously there are cases, everyone uses the analogy of you can't yell fire in a crowded cinema. That's a thing that you shouldn't say, and it should be illegal. Certain things should be illegal to say. So I'm not a free speech absolutist. I don't think someone should be able to look at a gay person and go, you're this or that, and call them homophobic slurs and yell at them. And I wouldn't sit there and go, I don't want to impede this person's free speech. No, you're a dick. You're harassing that person, and there are certain situations where free speech, can cross the line. But I believe there is censorship right now. I know for a fact everyone knows this, on Instagram, Google, Twitter, not so much now, but on all social media platforms, there is censorship, and it's usually against conservative voices. Big time. And that's fucked. That's absolutely fucked. I think I do think there's too much censorship on Google, on Instagram, on all those platforms. Now sometimes I'll type a response on Instagram to some point, and like you don't even swear or say anything nasty. You just express a certain opinion, and I'm very careful to always be respectful. It gets flagged by Instagram as an inappropriate comment, and it goes, "Are you sure you want to say this?" And you sit there going, "Well, is it worth it? Am I going to get kicked off Instagram if I say this?" I haven't sworn. I haven't used a racial slur. One I did recently, I said something like, feminism has become more than equality. It is now just a movement that is against men. That was the whole comment. There was no swearing. There was nothing like that. Not only did it get flagged when I first put it up, it got removed by Instagram, and I got a content warning just for saying that.
They did.
So what's the flag word there? Feminism or equality?
I was gonna say, how do they detect it?
Well, I think it's from people reporting it.
Because that's what I was saying. How are they detecting that?
Well, there's definitely AI detecting certain words and certain phrases and just certain sentiments. That AI is so good now, it can detect your sentiment. It can detect your sentiment, from what you say, but also from people reporting it. And also people saying their response to it and using negative words. Oh, well, you're homophobic. If someone says you're homophobic, the AI is going to pick up on that, and you're going to get labelled by the AI as homophobic. And you get blocked, and you get censored, and you get shadow banned. That's totally wrong.
So controlling. I commented on a post that Alexander Volkanovski put up, who's a UFC fighter, because I love the UFC.
Yeah, I love that guy.
And, he put up a video of him fighting Brian Ortega, and he was getting choked out, but he wouldn't tap out, and he got out of it. And I commented, "You're an animal," as a compliment.
Yep.
And that got flagged. And I got a what's that warning? Content warning.
Content warning, yeah.
Because they didn't understand the context of that slang.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, fuck, we're so
You can't even say you're an animal.
I said, you're an animal, like as in, like, you're an animal, like you savage. You didn't
That's
tap
fucked.
out, like you legend. So it's scary in a way, right?
It is, man. It is scary. It is scary. And I've noticed, I'm on Instagram a lot. Like, I have a following on there. I love Instagram. It's a place for me to express myself. But being on there so much, you start to really see the patterns of censorship.
Do you?
And it's out of control. Like, it's to the point now where I often have to censor myself, and I can't talk about a lot of the stuff I'd like to talk about because I know it's just the algorithms is going to punish me. I'll get either kicked off the platform, and that's sad. It's sad, but that's the reality. Like, you got to weigh up. Do I want to talk about this thing and express my true opinion and have a platform? Or if I say this thing, I might be kicked off the platform entirely. So you got to weigh that up. So I am being curbed. My mentality and what I can say is being controlled by that.
So you made an intelligent statement about feminism, but a post about frothing your milk with a vibrator was allowed.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird, isn't it?
Was that an ad, Dean? Be honest.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Because it was a good one if it was.
No, it was definitely not purposely an ad. So, yeah, my missus gets sent sex toys and various things like that, and she left one of them on my desk, and I thought that'll be a funny video. So I pretended it was like a milk frother, and I'm just some dumbass didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And it definitely wasn't like I didn't get paid a cent. Put it that way.
Send him the invoice.
I know.
Yeah.
So wait, how many of your followers are supporters of you? Like, do you think?
Good question. I don't know.
Yeah, because it sounds like there are people on there just to provide their opposition to what you're saying.
Yeah, I reckon. You know what? I reckon of my followers and supporters, I'd say 80% are in support, at least, if not more, like 90%.
And that 20% are more vocal?
10% that are just like impartial, and probably 2% that are full hate follows.
Yeah, right.
Dude, how did your Instagram blow up? Like, from being like, once you got on the show and it went public, like what were you sitting on numbers wise, and how did it just blow up overnight? Like, did you just go from having like?
Yeah, I had nothing. I had no followers 30. At all.
What was the comparison?
Yeah, literally like 30 followers or something. Like, I just use Instagram. Well, then it goes up and down. I think at the peak I had something like 95,000.
Right.
And most of that came on the finale of Maths because my storyline did kind of change, and I pointed out that my wife was the one that was full of shit and accusing me of all these certain things, and everyone kind of saw and went, "Oh wait, this guy's actually telling the truth." And
That was emotional.
everything switched overnight. I think I got 50,000 followers in one night.
I was crying.
Oh,
Were
damn.
you?
No, I wasn't. Were you? Were they real tears? Oh my god!
I mean, at the end, there was a ceremony at the end, like the final ceremony. I
you
did
cry?
I did cry on national TV. It was fucking emotional, man. Like,
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you.
how dare you?
Sorry.
This is toxic masculinity
It
right
is.
here.
Cancelled.
Daz, let's go have a cry over in the corner.
Yeah, don't show your emotions in front of me. Fuck that. No, just kidding. No, keep going.
No, man, I cried in the final vows ceremony because you've been through hell. Like, you've been through, like, it's like being in prison for 2 months. And then the final scene, you have to choose whether or not you want to stay with the person or leave. And it's like this whole thing, are you going to get together outside of the experiment? And my partner and I, we'd made a pact that was total bullshit. We said we're going to both say yes, even though we wanted to break up. Like, we'd already broken up like 3 weeks before that. We weren't even close to being together. But she convinced me that it was a good thing for me to say yes at the end and lie, which is fucking ridiculous. So I did have this bullshit big speech and I lied and I cried during that moment because it was just overwhelmingly emotional. And I was like, I do want to be with you, Tracy. Total lie. And then she said, oh, well, fuck you, Dean. You fucked me over, so I'm going to leave now, which was like, that wasn't part of the plan. She double-crossed me and said that she told me to my face she was going to say, yeah, I want to be part of this outside of the experiment. And then she said no at the end. So whatever, good.
She wanted
good
the
for her.
last laugh.
I think she wanted the last laugh, and good for her. She got it.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
Did anyone survive the relationships out of?
I don't think anyone from our season survived, no.
Do you think it was the emotion of just the build up the whole experience? Because I know my mental health, I think there's very few people that could deal with literally the psychological warfare that you were faced with from the very start. Like that upheaval to your life would have been so gnarly, man.
It was, man. It was. Yeah, it was very emotional and just like you literally felt like you've been in prison because you're not allowed to talk to people. You're not allowed to share with your friends and family what's going on because you can't give away the storylines of the show. So you're in this little bubble. You're staying in a hotel room in North Sydney. You're not allowed at your house. You're not allowed around your friends. It's literally like being in like solitary confinement, but with this one person. So it's pretty full on, man. It's very emotional.
Were you being well financially compensated for this?
Fuck no.
Not at all?
Not at all.
No
don't get
money?
paid. No, you don't get paid for it.
How do you survive?
Look, this is the thing. They need to find people who kind of have their own businesses. This is why so many people on that show are like entrepreneurs or people that work for themselves because who's got 2 to 3 months to take off work to go on a stupid TV show? So they have to find people who are kind of independent workers. And I was working for myself. I ran my own business at the time, so I was able to take that time off work but just still have my laptop and do little bits of work here and there. But you don't get paid. You get like $150 per DM to cover your costs and that. They don't even pay for everything on the dates and shit.
Interesting.
Cheap asses.
Wow.
Just generally, if you don't mind me asking, like, how would you rate your mental health? You know, over the course of your life, you know, do you think it really? You seem like a stable type of personality. Do you think if you weren't a stable personality, it could have been quite detrimental?
Yeah, man, definitely.
Okay.
I talk a bit of shit about the producers, but the one thing I think they do have to do is make sure that the people on the show can handle being on that show. Yeah. They know that they're going to cop a lot of shit, right? I think they do personality tests to get info out of you to see how they can manipulate you. I also think it is partly because they don't want a fucking basket case on their hands and someone committing suicide or something heavy from all the bullshit that goes on. So I think they have a certain level of responsibility to pick people who can handle that. And yeah, thankfully I have been relatively, you know, my mental health has been good my whole life. I'm quite a stable person. You know, I don't get too emotional. I can handle things pretty well. And I think anyone that goes on that show has to have at least a minimum level of that. Yeah, a lot of people do struggle. I struggled here and there for sure. But other people struggled a lot worse than me. And they have like a psychiatrist, not the ones on the show. They have like an off-camera psychiatrist that you can speak to, but they only allocate you like 5 minutes a week with that person. There's not enough support, I don't believe.
Interesting.
And the key is once the show finishes airing, they drop you like a rock.
Wow.
And that's kind of the time where people need help the most. But their obligation to you is done then. Even though they still own your name for the next 2 years and they profit millions and millions and millions of dollars off you and your likeness, they don't support you in any way after the show.
Well, what opportunities have come your way as a result financially?
Yeah, look, a few, like not that many. I know some people that go on that show get do very well out of it. And like Cam and Jules are probably a very good example. Martha and Mike, they've both done really well out of it, and they've turned into these big time kind of influencers, and they're good on them. Like they've worked their asses off to do that. They are a certain type of person that can do that, and I applaud them all the way. But when you get the villain edit, like myself, there's not that many financial opportunities that come from it. There's a few here and there. The main ones I was getting was like go and party. Like I was getting invited to go to nightclubs and get paid a couple of grand. The best one I had was $5,000 for one night for 90 minutes to go and party at a nightclub.
Wait, in Australia?
Yeah, man, in Parramatta.
$5,000 to show up.
Places, yeah. Which you normally have to pay me $5,000 to go to Parramatta anyway. So. Just kidding, I'm from Parramatta.
Yeah. So what did you do at the party? Just get drunk?
Mate, get wasted,
what, talk to
party,
people?
and then pick out whatever chicks you want to come back to the pad with you and party for the rest of the night and walk out of there with $5,000 cash.
Well, okay.
Did you find yourself more attractive to... Was that your question? Sorry.
Well, sorry. You go. You finished?
Did you find yourself more attractive to the opposite sex because of the show?
Oh, mate, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, I got so much more attention from women that I never would have got without being on TV. Like, women just throwing themselves at us. It was ridiculous.
How'd you manage that?
Oh, it was tough, mate. It was very tough.
No, well, I'm sure it would have been.
No, that was the funnest part about it. That was amazing. Like, I love that shit. Like, I'm a fucking very sexual person. I've always been into that kind of stuff, and like, it was a big boost for my game as a single guy out there. It was insane. I got to sleep with some like the craziest women that probably would have never slept with me unless I'd been on TV. I don't know, but like,
you're a good looking dude though.
Thanks, bro. I don't know, but I definitely noticed a difference. Like, there's models and shit literally sliding into your DMs. Like, that never happened to me before I was on the show. Yeah,
dude. So like, thanks for man. Thanks for not sugarcoating that. I love that you were just like, yeah, dude. Yeah, that's so rad. But you're in a committed relationship now?
I am now, yeah.
Well, nice. I want to go back now to your early life again. Like, I want to find out what kind of student you were at school. How would you rate yourself?
Terrible, man.
Really?
Terrible.
Did you like school?
Look, I like the social aspect of school, man. I've always been social, and I think, because my parents owned pubs when I was younger, you get to meet people all the time. You're hanging out in the bar, like... It's different to what it is now. Back then in little old Newcastle, it was like the pub that we lived in was like, my lounge room was the pool room. So I'd be hanging out with the local alcoholics and, chicks, like 24-year-old chicks when I was like 12 years old and like talking to them, and you just become very social. So I've always been real social. So at school I was a very social person and into my footy and whatnot. But as far as academia, I was always interested in language and English and history, but terrible at like science, terrible at maths, just not a good student at all.
Yeah. And playing sport at school.
Playing sport, and then I got more into like art and stuff when I was in like starting to get into like year 8, year 9, art and music. I was always good at art, music and like photography. It was probably like my best subject.
What high school did you go to?
Newey High, mate.
Really?
Newcastle High.
Dude. I know the school. It's a good area.
It's a great area.
When did you find skateboarding?
Yeah.
How old were you?
Man, I first got into it with my brother. My brother got me into it like in the like Hazoi era, man. Like I got my first skateboard up on the wall in the spare room there. It's a Hazoi Hammerhead. So I was into skating when I was like, 8, 9, 10. And then I kind of phased out of it for like my primary school years and then got right back into it in like year 8, year 9.
What, like late 80s?
Yeah, man.
Early 90s?
Yeah, late 80s, yeah. Definitely that era, like, when Plan B Questionable came out and, like, Spitfire Video and, like, fucking Girl, like, when all that shit, and, like, World Industries, man, like, and fucking Big Brother Magazine, dude. That was my time. Like, Big Brother Magazine, before Jackass, like, when we all idolized, like...
When it was uncensored,
oh, my
dude.
God, that was mental.
I was thinking about, they did an article back then on... like on how to make LSD.
Yeah.
And
how to kill yourself.
How to kill yourself.
How to make
Remember that
bongs,
article?
all that shit. And
Yeah.
see, that's what I miss. Like, that was fucking amazing. Like, what? If you're a skater, you knew that was like tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
You know, like they weren't really wanting people to kill themselves. No. It was a joke. It was pushing the boundaries of intellectualism. It was like, what can we talk about? How mentally strong and funny and cool are you? We're going to fucking make jokes about suicide. Can you fucking handle that?
That's what it
and
was
I think
like.
that's healthy. I think that's healthy. I think that's just an intellectual pursuit of like, how extreme can we be? You know?
Not sweep that shit under the rug.
Yeah, and even like, just like race it. Like, I remember there was like, I'll probably get in trouble for saying this word, but remember there was like a Chinks episode of Big Brother magazine, but it was written by Asian skaters, and they were making fun of themselves, and it was like Day One or someone else. I don't know, it was a couple of Asian skaters, and it was like the Chink episode.
There was a
Day
black
One.
issue.
Black issue.
Gay. Remember the gay issue?
They would make fun of gay stuff, and like, and it's like they weren't being homophobic.
Yeah.
They were like being. I think they were pushing the boundaries of free speech for a reason.
Exactly. That's what they were doing.
You know, and you cannot get away with that now. Imagine trying to do any of that shit now.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
Remember that cover where they got oversized women in bikinis, like really overweight, and then just covered them in red paint and got them to lay all over each other while someone ollied them?
Yep.
Dude.
Like they were a big pile of meat. It
Remember
was like
the religion issue?
Oh,
like,
my God.
Steve Olsen kickflipping a burning Bible.
Fucking gnarly.
Like, imagine that. That's
But I like your take on it. Like, it's pushing the boundaries of intellectualism.
Like, do you think you were around back then? You know what I'm talking. Not that many people in the world really know about that era, right? But do you think it was inappropriate, or do you think it was racist or sexist? What do you guys think?
I don't know. But, I mean, like we've said before, like skating was a sort of a secret society back then. It wasn't really, like, public.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
that
that's
sort of
true.
stuff. It was that little
true.
secret, you know?
Yeah.
And it was funny.
That's true.
Everyone's on the same page.
But has your perspective changed now you're a father? Because mine has, I'll be honest.
Yeah, for sure. I mean...
Would you would you want your daughter reading that magazine?
No, but we were 15,
That's a good
16.
point.
We were reckless, you know, like, and it was edgy. The 90s was an edgy time.
See, I think I would want my kids reading that magazine specifically, because I think they would be smart enough to know that it's not really being racist. It's not really being sexist or this or that. I think, and saying that, I don't have kids. So I got to respect you guys' opinion on that, and I definitely respect parents, and you know, it's a tough one. I shouldn't really speak on
I
that,
definitely
'cause
don't think you
have
wrap
kids.
them in cotton wool. And I'm a high school teacher.
Yeah,
you
fair
know,
enough.
and so I do think that is a big problem, that we are wrapping these kids in cotton wool and trying to overprotect them, and it's not breeding any sort of resilience, but it's also not breeding any rational thought. It's breeding this weird sense of entitlement. That's my take on it after being a high school teacher for like, oh God, I don't want to say like 16 years now. So,
But wait, so your position on Big Brother and some of those more controversial things they talked about, you've changed your position on that, you think, a bit?
Look, I mean, my kids are only like young. My daughter's only like 8, but if I'm going to be straight with my opinion on it, I don't think that should be censored. I think we should have free speech. Free speech is free speech, and you need to be rational enough to, like what you said, intellectualize it for what it is. It's tongue in cheek. It's taking the piss, but it's also showing the extremes. It's like this is the extreme, and I think innately most humans have this gauge of, you know, what is morally okay and what isn't. But when you keep hiding them from it, they start to lose that moral compass.
Yeah.
And then they become sheep.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's
They become a
just
sheep, and they
another take on it.
they're wrapped in cotton wool, and it's like there has to be a level of free thought and freedom of expression. But you said your daughter's 8, right? I don't think Big Brother magazine was aimed at 8-year-old
Exactly,
kids. I think it was aimed at people, you know, at least 14, more like 16. Probably legally was aimed at people 16 and over.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you
think so,
imagine? Like,
When I was reading, when I was like 19,
I wouldn't expose.
19.
I wouldn't. If I had an 8-year-old, I wouldn't expose them to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe when they're like more like 16, I would. I would want my kids watching that kind of stuff when
Yeah.
they're 16 and older.
Yeah.
As long as it's in the right context. See, we knew as skaters, like we knew that we were the ones that welcomed the misfits. You know, it's almost like skaters were allowed to joke about certain things because we were the misfits. We were
true.
the outsiders, so we could get away with more shit because we were the ones that were actually hanging out with the misfits of society and welcoming them. So we knew about them and their culture more than most other people, and B, we knew that they had a sense of humor. We knew that we all like to joke about that shit.
Yeah.
But if you see it in context of like a white guy like Johnny Knoxville making what on the surface would seem like a racist joke or whatever, for example, it might look bad. But in the context of our culture and what we were all about, it was actually really powerful and made a lot of sense and was an awesome thing.
I think it was so liberating for men, young men. You know, Big Brother would talk about masturbation all the time, and it's like a lot of young men were like living in shame about that. And they're like, hey, look, this is normal and it's okay to get naked in front of your mates as a joke and whatever. Like, we've all got dicks and or whatever, you know. So I think it's good. But the irony in today's society is that kids actually have more access to way more hardcore shit than they ever have. Like,
that's a good point.
I get really petrified about like the hardcore porn that kids can come across accidentally.
That's a good point.
You know, they're going to get exposed to some gnarly shit.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, man. Anyway,
Remember that, on a note, remember the Big Brother era? Remember that board that came with the start smoking kit?
Oh, yeah, and you got a cigarette with the board.
And a match.
You got like a Camel and a match.
Yeah. That's insane.
It's like they weren't
Imagine doing that now.
And they weren't trying to get kids to start smoking. But like the mainstream media would have looked at that and gone, oh, they're trying to get kids to start smoking. No, if anything, it's the opposite. It's like we're pointing out how absurd it is.
Yeah.
We're pointing out how absurd racism is. We're pointing out how absurd being nasty to gay people is by mocking that world. You know, it's like you can't get away with that mocking kind of humor anymore when
everyone's got a platform
bullshit.
to be offended and heard these days, you know. Like,
Yeah,
if you're offended back then, no one cared.
No, exactly.
well, no one had an opportunity to voice that.
Yeah.
Like you said, they had no way of doing it. You know,
Yeah.
dude, so interesting.
I guess social media has changed that a lot. And I was thinking about this, like if you run Twitter or you run Instagram, you don't want really hateful shit on there. I get that. Like, so you got to have some controls, like, and some things would have to be censored. Like, imagine the shit that gets censored that really does need to be censored. Like, I'm sure that, you know, like fucking dead bodies or people getting killed or proper rape or whatever it might be. I'm sure there's hectic shit out there that gets censored all the time. But then it just starts to encroach on just people even talking about that stuff or mentioning anything to do with it gets censored. And it's like, I don't envy the job of like the censors and people that run those platforms. But I think, in my opinion, it's gone too far with the censorship now.
I agree. When you graduated Newey High?
Yeah.
Did you go to university?
Nah.
What was your first job out of high school?
Good question,
Parents'
man.
pub.
Nah, by that time my parents were out of the pub, so I was just a lone wolf skater. And then all the boys, we got jobs as roadies.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Because, like, the guy Owen that owned the Newcastle skate shop, which was like the centre of the Newey skate scene, his side business was called Lock and Load. And so they did all
Big Day Out.
Yeah, man, Big Day Out, all the big punk shows, like Beastie Boys, Primus, Nirvana, every sick band from that era. Lock and Load was the company that did the roading for them, and all the skaters, that's how we made money. We all did Lock and Load on the sides, and you get to go to these concerts for free. I saw Slayer backstage on the side, and you're getting paid to be there. I mean, it's a shit job. You have to lug fucking giant speakers and shit for fuck all money, but yeah, that was probably my first job.
No way. Yeah, so you went to all the big day outs back in the day.
Went to a few big day outs. I think I missed the first one, but then I was at the few ones after that. You know, Run DMC, every cool band you can ever think of, you get to see them for free.
Amazing,
working for Lock and Load.
I remember. I've heard of them. I think I had friends that might have worked for them.
Yeah.
Weren't you in a band yourself, Dean?
Yes. Yeah. I was in a punk band called Disengage in Newcastle in like the 90s, I guess, like mid-90s.
Yeah, I remember. I saw him. I was like,
Dags was in the pit.
I was there.
How'd you two meet?
Yeah, probably.
Do you remember?
I don't know if I remember the first time we met, but I'd say it was through like Chris Yo and that.
It would have been. I think I came up to Newcastle one weekend, and Chris said, "Oh, we'll go skate this spot, Civic."
Yeah,
you know that spot, and it was just me and you, I think.
Really?
But I do remember, you had an amazing nollie pop.
Oh, thanks.
You doing nollie nose slides on that ledge, and that seemed high. It was probably
Yeah.
knee high for the time. I'm like, this
slightly
is
above knee
sick.
high, that one.
Yeah.
Oh, cheers, man. Thank you. Yeah, I love switch. I love nollie. But like we had this little warehouse that me and my mate Liam lived in. And it was like the hub for all the skaters. So like anyone who come from Sydney or overseas, they'd often end up sleeping on our couch or whatever. And then Daz, I don't know how many people know, but like the Amnesia skate brand, Chris Yeo, Ben Cox, Peter Schiffman. That video, Loves Ugly Children, the Amnesia video, was fucking all time. And if you're a Newcastle skateboarder, when that video came out and watching Darren's part, Ben Cox's part was fucking phenomenal.
He's incredible.
It was just like a mind-blowing time. Like, it was like, we were just so into skate. Ben was the god. Ben Cox was the god of Newcastle. He was doing handrails before anyone. Daz was fucking ruling shit back then.
It was such a good scene back in those days,
God.
man. It was so fun.
I think it's still a
amazing.
good scene.
Yeah.
It's got the scene's stronger than
Yeah.
ever.
Yep.
Rowan Davis just got made pro for girls.
I saw that, yeah.
It's something in the water up there, man, for sure.
Do you still speak to Ben?
Not Ben Cox. No, I haven't spoke to Ben. Last I heard, he moved to Tasmania.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you heard from him?
Not really. A little bit. But yeah, he's in Tasmania. I know he's got a daughter, I think, as well.
Really?
So, yeah.
Interesting.
But
Last time I spoke to Ben, he fucking came to my house when I was living in Newtown, and I hadn't seen him for a while. He randomly came. We like partied and shit one night, and then fucking next day, I wake up, he's gone. My sink is full of black vomit.
oh my God.
There's a fucking giant mess. And then I haven't heard from him since then.
Yeah, right.
Like fucking animal, dude. Cox
Yeah.
is a fucking phenomenon. Like he's such a freak. I don't know. I wish him all the best. I hope he's doing good.
I think he still skates every now and again, eh?
That's cool.
I know he battled some demons, for sure.
He did.
But yeah, I think he's doing all right. I saw a photo of him recently with Davo. So
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of man, I reckon that guy's a genius. I don't throw that word
Yeah.
around lightly, but
Yeah.
from skateboarding, even like intellectual perspective, and a lot of people that are like extreme creatives battle a lot of demons. And I
Yeah.
know Cox went through his battles. You know, we all have, I have as well, but he battled that shit hard. And I think it's because they're like extreme people. That's what makes them so good at whatever it is they do. They're extreme people. Yeah. And Cox was just an extreme dude. It's like, I'm going to skate, or I'm going to fucking throw myself down this 12-stair marble handrail that no one's ever done. And not only that, I'm going to fucking K-grind it, and I'm going to do it on a shitty board with like Converse with fucking holes in them.
2 different shoes, yeah.
Oh my God. I don't know how he did half the shit he did back then.
Yeah,
He's a freak.
It's a double-edged sword, though. You know, that creativity and mental health battle. See it all the time.
Yeah.
I've noticed it on here a lot too since I've started the podcast.
Really?
Yeah, it's just a commonality. You know.
What with like people who are really talented with something can be a bit extreme with addictions and things like that.
Absolutely. But another common theme I'm noticing that the ones that overcome it seem to be the ones that do turn to religion. So I've done some interesting episodes of late. Episode 200 is quite a big one for me coming up.
Yep.
I'll tell you after the show who it is.
Oh, cool.
And he was a really good example of like just the longevity he was able to maintain through battling extreme creative ideas and also being literally one of the best to ever do it on a skateboard. So I don't know. It is what it is.
When I was a kid and I was younger, I used to consider myself an atheist, and like there was a few sort of Christian skaters around, and I always looked at them as like nerds, and I was like, oh, what are you doing that for? And it's like, as I got older, I really appreciate religion. I read the Bible. My Bible's sitting right there. I read every Friday with my pastor from my church, and it has helped me. It just helps me stay focused. Like, I believe in God. I believe in a higher power. There's so many good lessons in the Bible. And it's like, now it's like, holy shit, how did I not see this earlier? And like, I understand why a lot of guys do it and a lot of skaters do it and a lot of people battling demons do it. I got into it because I was battling some demons at the time. I went through a really nasty breakup, and I walked into the church one day, and this guy just started talking to me, and like, it really resonated with me what he was saying. And ever since that day, I've been reading the Bible and getting to church whenever I can, and just it just helps you stay focused. And yeah, I think it helps a lot of people. I think it helps way more people than it harms. And it's got such religion has a bad name in this day and age, and it's so fashionable to hate on it and shit. It's like, yeah, there's some bad shit, and there's bad shit's happening in the Catholic Church, of course. Like, no one's condoning any of that shit. But in general, I think it's helped far, far, far more than it's hindered the
100%.
world and people in general.
Well, there's a reason why there's 2.4 billion people into Christianity. That's the stat. I've actually looked it up recently. And then Islam's second under that in terms of popularity. Yeah, and it's funny, man, because we're around the same age range. Yeah, like it is making more sense to me than it ever has. And it's there's so many layers to it.
Yeah, man.
And I think you have to be in a space where you're ready to hear the messages.
Yep.
So I don't know, because I've only just started reading it recently. And
Yeah,
a
right.
good friend, and you might know him, Sid Tapia, has sort of been, sharing his views on it, and he's been studying it for 20 years, and he feels like he's only scratched the surface.
Yeah, man.
But I mean, for me, Sid's another really good example. He was highly talented, had his demons, and now he's in his mid to late 40s, like thriving with his art and more inspired than ever. Have you seen Sid's art?
Not really. I remember him from back in the day. I don't know him as a friend, but I'd love to check out his work. And like, yeah, I talked to Peanut. Peanut asked me one day, he's like, Dean, why are you into religion? Like, what does this do for you or whatever? I was like, I can't really explain it, man. But when I'm reading the Bible, when I'm listening to the Word of God, when I'm praying to God, my life just seems to work better. I can't really explain it. Maybe I'm not claiming it's this or that, but for me, my life just works better. I don't know. That's all there is to it for me. Like, in every way, like, it makes you a better person if you really take it on board and read. Like, there's so many. That's the beauty of reading with someone who knows it very well. Like Barry, my pastor from the church, he's been reading the thing for fucking 40 years. And so you read one verse with someone that knows what they're talking about, and it takes on a whole different meaning. And Bible scholars know most of it is kind of metaphor. And the things that seem crazy and, why is there a snake that talks or this or that? Yeah, it's a metaphor, dude. And it's only when you really dig deep into what that metaphor means that you start to go, holy shit, this is some deep, deep wisdom. Yeah. This is some ancient wisdom here. Like,
absolutely, man.
It's fucking amazing.
And I'm finding the people that I respect, look up to, and want the peace that I see in them. I mean, I was so shut off to it and clueless, but I'm just realizing those people align with the religious denomination. I'm like, so there's a commonality there. I'm like, well, I like how that guy lives, and I want what they've got.
Yeah, man.
And I'm like, then you find out how they're living, and you're like, I get it. So. I don't know. That's just a recent realization I've been having. So,
how do you do it? The Bible? Do you just pick it up and open a page randomly and read something, or have you got a place where you go?
I don't think that's anyway. I think you just get lost if you do that. Yeah. I think having someone that knows it, like, you're not going to start at the start and end at the end. You can do that, and I think everyone should do that. But my guy takes me to one certain passage or one certain story, and then we analyze that one part for like a week.
Right.
And we go, what does that mean? Or what is it? Why do they say that particular word? Oh, this translation from Hebrew means this or that. So when you really think about it, it actually means this. And it's like, I think you need someone that knows it really well in order to get the most out of it. Like, I think if you just, like, 'cause you don't know the backstories and, like, the connection to this story, and the reason they said this in this verse is because it was mentioned in this verse back here, and, like, it's like, I don't know, it's like with skating, like, you either start from scratch and have no one to teach you, and you can learn that way, but if you hang out with 10 guys that are skaters and they show you how to do ollies and they show you to do knowledge, like, you're going to learn a million times faster. You know, it's so complex, there's so much to it, but then the general themes start to repeat and make sense. So I think you should read with someone that knows about it.
Do you think that's what our society's lacking? Because, back in the old days, our Australian society was very much built on the structures of Christian values. But we've drifted away from that, and then we seem to have more societal issues than we've ever had. Mental health, epidemics.
Yeah, man.
There's an observation.
You know what? I disagree. Okay. And I'll tell you why. Because I think we're actually smarter and healthier and mentally healthier than we were 30, 40 years ago. It's just that so much of it now has come to light. Like, think about your opportunities and your options 40 years ago, before the internet, before smartphones, just to contact someone, you had to have their landline number. So what if you lose track of someone and then they could just move one town away and you'll never see them again? Now we keep contact with people via Facebook or whatever. There's so much more support. There's so many more opportunities to get jobs because of the internet. There's so many more opportunities to meet people because of things like Tinder or Facebook or whatever it is. I think in general, our mental health is way better than it was 40 years ago. Now, does that translate to religious and like what effect has religion has on our society? I think that's a different story. I think in general, technology has made us a much better place and made the world a much better place. And people want to whinge about social media and this and that. Well, think about the world before it. Think about a world without social media at all. It's not a good place. It's much better with the internet and social media. And so, yeah, look, I think we're finding our feet now, and a lot of people are starting to come back to religion. But I think we needed to democratize knowledge and learning and access to information. And so many people now have so much more information. Like, you can't bullshit anymore. I remember when we were a kid, man, we used to go on holiday. Me and my brother would go up to Coffs Harbour or wherever, and you go skating at the local school and there'd be local kids there, and they'd be like, hey, man, you skate pretty good. Like, you sponsored? And you go, yeah, man, I'm sponsored. I'd skate for fucking Santa Cruz. And, like, you just bullshit and, like, just make up. And they couldn't Google it. So they just had to take your word for it. Yeah. If you're a half-decent skater, you get away with that. So for that week that you're on holidays, you're some legend because you're a pro skater. And like, I'm coming. I'm in the next Thrasher mag, dude. I'm on the front cover. Like, me and my brother would bullshit and like little things like that. You can't get away with that anymore. No. So people are more honest and people are more real and people are more accountable. Exactly, dude. Accountability has come from the internet and this access to knowledge. So I think in general, that's a very positive thing. And I don't know, hopefully, more people are going to come around to religion. And like, I don't know, the more people think like science can trump religion. I'm like, no, when you really dig deep into science and you have all this access to information, there's still so much that we can't explain. Like, the only way to explain it is that there's a higher power or a higher meaning. Like, we don't know anything. We don't know why language works. We don't know why we're able to speak to it. We don't know where bananas come from. We don't know shit. Like, you don't really know much. We don't know that we definitely, like, came from apes or this or that. Maybe we did. I don't know. I'm not saying we didn't, but we don't really know. There's so much we don't know. Who created? Oh, the Big Bang happened. So what? What was there before the Big Bang?
It's insane.
Like,
shit, my head's starting to spin again. Every now and then I think about it.
That's got deep, quick.
Yeah, I mean,
yes, sir, Dean. Like, honestly, like, I love what you're saying. I agree.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I talk about that shit for days, man. It's just like, with religion, right? This is the other thing that a lot of people go on with. They go, oh, well, Hinduism has a creation story and then an afterlife story, and they have their version of heaven. And, you know, some Chinese religions have their version of heaven, and Americans have their version of heaven, so one of them must be lying. No. They're all telling the truth. I believe in all religions. I believe in Islam. I believe the stories of every religion is an expression of this universal longing for meaning and, you know, a recognition that there is something more than just this world. So I actually believe in every religion out there. I don't agree with every single tenet of every single religion, but I respect every religion, and I respect atheists as well. Like, but
all religions are identifying a spiritual realm, regardless of how they go about it. That's the commonality.
Exactly.
So, you know, that's where, again, like, I really agree with the whole higher power thing, but also all religions are asking the people to surrender their self-will. And I really feel that self-will is what drives a lot of pain in our world. Because when someone's running on their own self-will as a flawed human, it's always based in pride, ego, fear, and those things lead to behaviours like harm and violence and death and rape and things, discussing things like that. So that's what they're all doing. That's why, like, you know, with Islam, you know, they pray 3 times a day consistently, and each time they do it, they're surrendering their self-will to something in the spirit realm and saying, I can't do this by myself. Guide me. show me how to do it. Because if I do it myself, I'm going to fuck it up.
That's a good point, man. It's a really good point. I haven't really thought about it that way. It's a very good point.
Anyway, man, I did not expect the conversation to go that way, dude. Respect, man.
Man, I love it. I love it. Me and my missus went to the Ramadan festival.
Really?
Yeah, it's a fun festival. There's just all different types of food and stuff, and like it's a really fun, just cool, not religious kind of thing. But as we were leaving, we drove past the mosque there, and all the men were going for the 5 o'clock prayer. And like the music was beaming out, and like I had a moment there. I was like, "Fuck, I kind of get this." Yeah. Like
you felt something.
I was like, "These guys are fucking dedicated." Like for all the shit people talk about Islam, and there's bad things about every religion. A lot of those people are fucking dedicated, man, to God and to the idea, like you just said, like exactly what you just said. That's what it reminded me of it. They're giving themselves over, and it's a good thing in general. Like, the guidance we get from the Quran or the Bible, it's a good thing. If you live your life based on those tenets, the world's going to be a better place. If everyone lived their life based on those tenets, the world's going to be a better place.
Well, humans can't be trusted.
Yeah, exactly.
We can't be trusted. It's like because I lived in Bali for a few years, working and teaching over there, and everything they do is based in spirituality. Like they do daily offerings every day out the front of their houses. And you go there on a holiday and you're seeing like, oh, isn't that cute? But when you're living there every day and they're seeing them doing the same thing over and over, it's like brushing their teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah, you start to take it more seriously. And I used to watch my housekeeper. She'd burn the little offering out the front of our house every day. And just for this brief moment, you'd see her doing the little ceremony and moving her hand. And like this piece would strike me. And next thing I'm mesmerized. Wow. And like I could feel, I got goosebumps thinking about it. I'm like, there's fucking something else there. There's something going on here.
Yeah. Is that Buddhism or Islam?
No, they're Hindu.
Hindu?
Yeah, so Indonesia is predominantly like an Islamic country, but Bali is this one island where they actually fought for their rights to be Hindu.
Right.
That's what's so special about Bali, but that's a whole other tangent.
Yeah.
Listen, man, it's been so epic. What's next for you?
Good question, bro. Look, maths definitely, like, it's 5 years ago now, but it still affects my life.
Really?
And it affected my business. I couldn't run my business, really. It basically killed my creative agency at the time, in good and bad ways. Like, I was doing all those fun appearances and that, so I couldn't really hold down a real job. But it was also all the controversy around it, especially in like the advertising industry. It's a very woke industry, like you can't have conservative politics and be a creative in the advertising world. So it's taken me literally to the last like 12 months to really get back into that world and get back into creative and editing and video. And so I've built up Arcade Studios, which is where we're sitting now, my little studio. I've built that back up. Starting to get more into that creative, which is what I enjoy, man. That's what I've done my whole life. I've been a video editor since I was like 16 years old, man. Before anyone had Apple computers and shit like that, like we were doing it in my little dungeon back in Newcastle, man. And like that's what I love doing. I love, I make content on Instagram. I talk about the things that I'm passionate about on Instagram. I love doing that, so I'm going to keep doing that as long as I can. That's just something I do for fun. I very rarely make any money off that. I'm not like an influencer or anything. A lot of people think I'm a fucking influencer.
Surely you could be with 90,000 followers.
Not really, man.
You can't reach out to companies.
Most brands, sometimes, every now and then I get a paid collab or this or that, but most brands don't want to work with someone who has conservative views. And it's not only just conservative views, it's the slightest little, straying from the whole hardcore woke left narrative. If you just don't buy into everything that woke left narrative stands for, a lot of brands just won't work with you, And so, if anything, I've sacrificed the ability to be an influencer and get paid for shit like that in order to just be able to express myself. Which for me, at the end of the day, I will choose that every single time. I don't give a fuck. Like,
yes, sir.
I'm not going to be fake. And I know a lot of these influencers, and a lot of them are fucking fake as fuck. They say one thing on their page, and then you speak to them backstage, off the cameras, and they are a completely different person. And fuck those people for being fake. I get it. Good on them. It's an easy way to make money. You can make good money doing that shit. And I don't blame them. Again, I'm not judging those people specifically, but I personally can't be fake, and I personally just enjoy talking about what I want to talk about. So I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep running my creative agency, Arcade Studios. Me and my missus are going really well. And, yeah, I just love it. I love life here in Manly, bro. I'm just happy. I'm trying to skate. Daz is trying to drag me out skating all
Let's
the time.
go to Savo.
I never go. But, yeah. Yeah, I could be up for a skate this Arvo, but mate, that's about it. I've set my life up in a way that I enjoy my life, and that's always been my goal, man, is to not have to go on holidays. I want to live a life where I don't feel like I need to escape it, and I've been lucky enough to do that, and I just want to continue to do that, man. I love snorkeling, I love the ocean, I love surfing, I love skating, I love music, I love to be creative, and man, I just want to do that as long as I can.
Yes, brother. Wow,
Yeah,
man.
brother.
I feel
Go
like
Dean.
it's a really powerful way to end, man.
Cheers, bro.
So yeah, I think we might leave it there.
Legend. Thanks for
Mr.
having me, man.
Dean Wells, everybody. You. Thanks, Darren.
No worries.
Love you guys.